Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. I've got purple skies all over the harbor. We were ascending out fast and furious. Those WNST texts over the weekend. The draft is always that way. You trade up, you trade back. We always stand shocked and amazed no matter what, because I don't know that there is a chalk or a script for this. And of course, Bob Baffert blew that up in the Kentucky Derby over the weekend as we get ready for the Preakness. Dennis Koulatsos joins us now. He is the draftnik around here, and probably the best weekend of the year if you're not watching actual footballs to watch the draft. I mean, surprises then, but not surprises, right? Like the wide receiver thing and the liar's luncheon and I'm so offended and how dare you and all of that. Happy post-draft to you. You give him an A, right?
It's hard to give teams grades. I know that all the draft nicks are prone to do that, but look, I'll fess up that I wanted Lawrence Phillips instead of Jonathan Ogden back in 1996. So let's just start from there. We all remember our hits, but we're quick to forget our misses. And let's keep in mind, Eric DaCosta, Ozzie Newsome, the scouts, they spend hundreds and thousands of hours looking at game film and tape and trying to figure out which of these players are the best fits for this team. So, and it usually takes 2 or 3 years for a draft to pan out before we can actually give them a grade. But look, they filled some needs. You have to applaud them for going big, going all in on offense. I didn't see a wide receiver in the first round, but hey, it was a bold move once again by Eric DaCosta, and you have to tip your hat off to him for that.
Well, I mean, you're in the business of Coons Ford of hiring people and keeping them around. And, I'm in my 30th year now of sports radio and 23 years of owning WNST. There are mistakes, there are misses, there are hits. I've given too much money to the wrong people and not enough to the right people. I've drafted the wrong free agents. I've been stolen from, lied to. I've had all of that as an employer. The Ravens have had all of that in a bag of donuts with Ray Rice punching women in elevators and Ray Lewis and Jamal. They've been through all of that. The one thing I would say that all these years in, and Bisciotti would at his soul, and I think we saw that with tears in his eyes when he fired Brian Billick, right? And he said, I might get this wrong. You know what I mean? Like, and if I get it wrong, I'm going to be looking for another coach. You're looking for,
Mhm.
if you get wide receivers wrong, you're going to be looking for more. If you get the quarterback wrong, as Brian found out with Kyle Bowler, you're going to be looking for another job, right? That's the league. But when you see their draft picks, and I said this to Bruce Posner earlier, I said when I saw the names come off, because Saturday I was with my wife over in Fells Point having some adult beverages, enjoying Eddie Lauer, enjoying the sunshine, and I'm getting the text from the Coons Ford text service on the WSD, and I see their name, and I'm like, Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame. I can almost tell you that kid's 6'5", 265. I can tell you what they're looking for in the framework of this. That bowling ball they drafted that played for Harbaugh's brother out in Michigan. Like, that they know what they want. And that's such an advantage, right? It's an advantage for you at Coons Ford to have been there so long. It's an advantage to anybody that's been in an industry and in a place that if you've been there that long, you've probably had some success, you're sticking around, and you have some game plan, some formula, some syllabus for what you want. And that's why I find it very hard to argue with the Ravens if they see upside in this kid from Penn State who didn't have a sack in a weird year, who has all the measurables. I find it weird to pick on them about two wide receivers because the second one was obviously one that they had pretty high up, maybe close to the first one if you talk to them. So learning about their draft in the aftermath of it, they have a spot in the building for all of these people, and they're very meticulous about it, more so than anybody else could be, because they put more resource and more time, I think, from the owner down than any other organization.
They really do. They're also in a division that's very explosive in terms of offensive talent. If you look at the Steelers' as wide receiver roster and their tight ends, the Bengals and certainly the Browns, you're talking about a lot of offensive firepower. So yes, you can try to build the best defense possible to counter that, but by the same token, your offense has to be able to score points, win a shootout situation, and also be in a position to come back from behind. And you can't do it without having players. So you have to tip their hats off for them for the first time in their history. Now they have three former first round draft picks at wide receiver. And I think that puts the pressure on Greg Roman to come up with some schemes that'll get these wide receivers open. Of course, they have to do certain things themselves in terms of separation, but They almost had to take that wide receiver. As I look back on it, again, I wasn't thrilled with the pick. I had 5 or 6 other players I would have taken other than a wide receiver. But look, I sell cars for a living on Security Boulevard, and Eric DaCosta does this for a living. So there is a huge difference there.
Dennis Koulatsos joining us here. He will be here on Thursday from 3 until 5, driving you home, getting you ready, of course, on Sunday as the former Sunday sports voice. For the wide receiver thing and the conundrum they've been in, which you and I have talked about at length, turns out we were pretty smart, right? Like we did know that they weren't going to be able to get a wide receiver in free agency in the way that they wanted to. They got what they wanted in Sammy Watkins, but growing this is going to happen through the draft. It's going to happen by having too many bodies, right? And they drafted Hayden Hurst. They settled on Mark Andrews, right? I mean, Ed Hartwell and not Ed Hartwell, Ed Dixon and Dennis Pitta, right? That sometimes you get Marshall Yanda wasn't the first round draft pick. Ben Grubbs was. They gave Yanda the money. So things change as all of this happens, but player by player, knowing they have some semblance of a role and looking at each one of them and saying, oh, I see some Yanda there. I see some Judon there. I see some Rick Wagner there. I see some whatever it would be, that this organization continually loses $10 million linemen after drafting them. And everybody says, oh my God, we don't have a center. Well, our center was playing for the Super Bowl champs last year, making $14 million a year, right? And our right tackle was on his third team playing for the Packers in the playoffs, right? So drafting these guys and bringing them in. Matt Judon will be making plays somewhere. C.J. Mosley may come back and make some plays somewhere. But these guys come through the system. They're not afraid of that. And it feels to me like they're already drafting for what happens after Ricard and Boyle aren't here. They're so far ahead, and they all feel like Pat Moriarty and Eric DaCosta still feel like they're going to have their job in 2025. And I think if you went around and gave the saliva test to 90% of the other people. I don't know how many car dealers in your position have been there as long as you are, but make decisions thinking about the end of next year. Because a lot of organizations can't think like that.
Yeah, short-term thinking gets you into trouble, and of course, with the NFL, you have people playing for contracts during contract years. They have a pending contract, so a lot of times they're very short-sighted. With the Ravens, first of all, they didn't need that many more players on their roster. They can't even absorb that many, which is why they even traded a pick for a 2022 fourth-round draft pick. Next year, Nestor, they may have four. They may have 4 fourth-round draft picks. So you're right. They're playing chess where the less.
Well, that's the piece they'll use to move up in the first round when they win the Super
Can.
Bowl and have to pick 32nd.
They
Right?
can,
Literally, right?
they can do that. So they're playing chess where a lot of your also around organizations are playing checkers. So again, there's just not. This is a very talent-rich roster, so it's going to be difficult to make it in the first place. They didn't need 9 players heading into the draft. They dropped it down to 8 players. They also got some great undrafted free agents. You got a safety that may make the team. It's going to be a very competitive roster, but it's nice to. That's the nice part about being part of such a stable organization. They don't have. They're not drafting for their jobs. They're drafting for their future and making moves with not just this year in sight, but also every year. And to me, I like being competitive every year. I don't like to have a 4-12 or 5-11 season. And when's the last time the Ravens ever dipped to that level? They're competitive, and if they get hot at the right time, who knows? They're certainly capable of winning a Super Bowl.
You've wanted the Orioles to be competitive. They're almost 500, I mean, we're quarter pole and they're almost a 500 team. So it's a little crazy that, you can make that kind of move. But to your point with the Ravens and where the level of expectation is, I asked this question at the Liars Luncheon. I begged off of the Mount Washington Pediatric Hospital golf course up at Hayfields with Leonard Raskin to go sit in a car on Zoom and watch this press conference to ask one question, raise my hand. And I asked, what do you expect the level of productivity to be from your wide receiver room? I felt like that was a pretty wide open question to say, what's the level of expectation? And now what they have is a really crowded room, right? So first things first, there's going to be a level of competition for catching the ball in practice, running clean routes. Does Lamar like you? Does Lamar feel comfortable with you? Because we're about to give this kid $250 million. If he doesn't like you, you're not going to be on the squad after Labor Day. So they've given Lamar a little bit of a box of chocolates now, haven't they? Where maybe in a way that Flacco was running around saying, Clarence Moore, what are you guys doing to me here?
Well, that's a great point because not only does this draft put pressure on Greg Roman, it puts as much pressure on Lamar Jackson. Tyler Huntley performed real well, in my opinion, uh, under very adverse conditions in a Buffalo game in the postseason. He came in, he moved the team, he had over 30 yards rushing, over 60 yards passing, just barely missed the Hollywood Brown that would have changed the entire complexion of the game. But if they're going to get and I'm not suggesting that they are, but if he doesn't take the next step, I wouldn't be too shocked. I'd be surprised, but I wouldn't be too shocked if Lamar didn't get that big deal. Um, he's got the weapons, he's got the toys, and he's got to step up. I would expect them to be their expectation. Nestor should be middle of the pack in terms of the passing game, not dead last. They're certainly the number one rushing offense in the NFL. They can drop the third, fourth, fifth, stay in the top 10 in terms of rushing the ball, rushing efficiency. But that passing game's got to take that next level up, maybe two levels up. You can't finish dead last. You've got to have more balance about you. And I would think for this season, middle of the pack in terms of passing efficiency should be the bar.
But they can't do any more than what they're doing, right? In this framework, to use serious draft picks the last 3 years to get him something, which is all they can do. They can't, even if they have the money in free agency to go bear it out on some Antonio Brown, right? Like make that kind of mistake. They haven't done that, but what they have done is what a good strategic organization would do, which is say, we're going to flood the zone with wide receivers. We're going to keep taking them. We're going to keep bringing them in. We're going to keep lining them up. We're going to keep coaching them up. We're going to keep designing plays to throw them the football. And on third and they got to catch it. And we got to make that happen. And if we don't make that happen, we're all going to go home early again next year, dissatisfied.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on with that. And again, that falls on Lamar. And I'll go back to exactly what I said. He's got to prove he can throw the ball outside the hash marks. He has to take that next step in terms of being a field general. He can't be a one read and either tuck it and run or throw it away type of a quarterback. He's got to go through his progressions. And I think the team also has done a nice job of forming the offensive line for him. They're getting more athletic offensive linemen. They're going to bring in, Villanueva or maybe Dennis Kelly at right tackle. Perhaps take another veteran once the veteran teams make cuts and whatnot. But I think forming a nice pocket around Lamar on passing downs should give him some time to go through his progressions and get better. But we'll see. A lot of questions to be answered before Steve Bisciotti, I'm sure, puts the pen to the paper for that big contract.
Dennis Koulatsos is here. He'll be here on Thursday from 3 until 5. Driving. What's going on out there, man? Spring is sprung, right? I mean, rain aside, this is the time of the year where like windows, T-tops, rag tops. But it's a weird vehicle year, right? You don't have the kind of selection industry-wide that people would maybe come to think of when they come to a dealership, right? I mean, it's a weird year to get cars, right?
Yeah, if you go shopping or if you just browse the web to see the inventory availability, it's just not there. Cars this year they're what toilet paper was a year ago. People that we just don't have any. This time of the year, Nestor, I typically carry well over 100 Mustangs as an example. This year I have 15 Mustangs left, and you know what? They're scarce. There's a scarcity in the industry. So if someone needs a vehicle, my recommendation to you is if you find one, buy it because chances are when you go back the next day, it's just not going to be there. It's definitely a market that's tight on inventory right now.
What about used, pre-loved, pre-owned, all that, like on trade-in? And I hear that like maybe you give me a little bit more than normal because you can sell it for more right now. I mean that nobody's going to get a cheap used car right now either because the inventory, especially a nice used car, right?
Right now, Nestor, I reached out to our customer base and I went back 6 months to 24 months ago, and I'm offering them exactly what they paid for their vehicle 6 to 24 months ago. I'm offering.
Whoa, 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 whoa! Why is this not in the ad?
Oh, it's we just did it over the weekend. We had a huge
You gotta
response.
make a new ad, you and me.
But
Do that.
yeah, but imagine I sold you a car 2 years ago, and I'm going to give you exactly what you paid for it because you know what? There's no depreciation. They are worth right now what you paid for them 2 years ago if you bought a new vehicle. The market is that
What
hot.
kind of mileage we talking here? Under 50,000?
We're talking a 15,000 mile per year average. So if you bring me a vehicle with 30,000 miles you bought 2 years ago, regardless of make, I'm taking Chevys and Toyotas and Mercedes. I don't care what it is. But if you
The
bought a vehicle,
30,000 miles is sort of the number.
correct. So if it's
Okay.
less miles, I'm going to give you more money. If it's more miles, we'll adjust it accordingly. We'll be fair. But it's just because we can't. Same thing if you bought a house 2 years ago, right? If you bought a house 2 years ago, it's worth more today than it was 2 years ago. It's just that simple.
I'm putting my house on the market with Moeller and Gary Realty on Friday. I hope you're right.
You're going to get multiple. You're going to get what you're asking for it and then some.
Don't say that. I had it on the market for a year
All
and a
right.
half and nobody walked through it.
You know what? A year and a
I live
half
here,
ago,
man. It's beautiful, Dennis. Come on.
a year and a half was a long, long time ago,
From
Nestor.
your lips to God's ears, my wife wants a garden. She wants a coffee
Okay.
outside and a deck and some grass somewhere. Like literally, we just don't have that. We love living here. We've loved living here forever. We're just ready for change. It's been 2 decades being here.
Well,
So
I got great news for you and Jen. There's a 4 million home shortage right now in the marketplace. 4 million people looking for homes
well,
can't
I got
find one.
one right here for you, Dennis Koulatsos. How
There
about
you
that?
go. There
All
you.
right,
Hey,
man.
look, I'll give you what you paid for it. There you go. When you bought it, a long time ago.
You and I should make some sort of like pinky bet or something that if the Orioles go over 500 after like June 1, we got to go to a game together or something
Okay.
like that. Maybe. I don't know.
Slap. Sounds like a plan.
We didn't talk any fishing or anything this time. I'm putting together the crab cake tour, and I definitely want to talk to you a little bit about this because you've been a lot of places I haven't been. So that's the homework. Next week we'll get together. We'll talk some
Okay.
Preakness, I'm sure, and some other things. But this crab cake tour is taken on. You've inspired me a little bit out fishing and doing stuff, and a lot of people have. You know about my walk in the park at Patterson Park and walking through the city and seeing new things. My wife and I went to Centennial Park, went for some hikes, gunpowder. Last year we couldn't do stuff. But I want to do fly fishing with you. We talked about that, but there's like bird sanctuaries on the eastern shore, like crabbing out with people, marlin fishing out on in the ocean from Ocean City. So there's these little things that are happening later in the summer that I'm trying to put my eye on and saying, if I could go out on a marlin boat one day, right? If I could go on a crab legitimately get out of bed at 4:30 in the morning, go out with the real crabbers like Anthony Bourdain, you know what I mean? And like sit there and like steam them at 2 in the afternoon, and get a crab cake, some corn, summer. I could be on the Eastern Shore with the peaches. They won't have to bring them to me. I can go get them. What do you think of that?
You know what? You just saying the word peach has made my mouth drool.
I want to go to an orchard and pick some peaches fresh and just go like this. Just like this, just like in the Bible, man, right? Grab it and eat it. Hey, how was Greek Easter?
Greek Easter was phenomenal. I'm going to send you a picture of the spread we had.
I don't
It was
want a picture. I
absolutely.
want the food. Why would you just send me a picture?
The food is long gone. We were down to stems and seeds, man. We're talking about licking the plate. It was so doggone good. Lamb chops galore.
I have so many Greek friends in my life, and I don't realize it until Facebook on Easter weekend. All of my Greek friends show up. Their grandfathers are dancing and doing things, and all I can forget the grandfather and the kids. I said Jen Klosteridis, her pictures of, and I'm like, I just want to see the food. You take the camera over and show me the cookie, show me the baklava, show me the pistizio, show me the moussaka, show me some stuff.
There was two clusteritas that I taught Sunday school many, many years ago, probably about 40, 45 years ago. So I know the name well, know the
You know
family
them.
well.
Yeah, well, I
Absolutely.
know East Side, man. The Kaplangises, the Raffalidis. It's all
All
my
of them.
people.
Yep. My
The
people too.
Macaritas. They're all my people. And the worst part is I didn't really discover the food until I had a Greek roommate when I was in my 20s. Like I didn't discover that like if I had a really good Greek uncle, Greek Easter's the best holiday there is. He would bring pastizio home from his grandmom's, up in Greektown, and we would eat it most of May. We would eat it until Preakness.
You can freeze it and you know what, heat it up, and it's just almost as good. Put it to you that way.
Oh man, my wife's
A
gonna
lot
make
of
me go
fun.
to Valentino's or something before it's all over with.
It's a lot of fun. It's a good
Hey
place to
man,
go.
I appreciate you as always. Draft weekend, I think there's hope for the Ravens. I think the thing we come out of this with, and it's not a kick at the Orioles or even a kick at the Browns or the Jaguars or at the Jets. These teams that throw darts. This is a time we really should have some appreciation for the Ravens because they're going to give us another really exciting year. And that's to your point. We like being competitive every year.
Look, and I also think that we have the best quarterback in the division. I think that speaks volumes for all the picks that the Browns and the Bengals and the Steelers took. I think Lamar Jackson's the best quarterback in the division, and that gives us a great chance to win every single week.
Well, I hope we beat the Browns. I mean, Luke's talking all this nonsense. Luke's already started with the Steelers are the clear-cut number 3. I'm like, don't say that,
No,
right?
not at all. You know what? The Browns, I'm not sold on their quarterback. I'm sorry. You know, he's 6 foot, and let's see what he does. Let's see if he progresses this year. That's a big question in Cleveland. They got all the pieces, but do they have the quarterback?
Every time I talk to somebody nationally about Lamar, and this is a lot before the draft, I had Peter King on, had Eric Edholm, getting draft people. All of them with Lamar, the one thing they'll always talk about, not as accurate as you want him to be and all that, but they all talk about the way how much better he's gotten. Over the 3 years, that he's way better than anybody thought he was going to be on draft day 3 years ago. Way more of a factor in playing in January, and you can't defend him. And you better just pray that he doesn't get better and the guys stop dropping balls, because there's been a lot of drop balls. There's been some blocking issues. There's been some communication issues, certainly with Miles Boykin and these others, that if they clean that up, this team's certainly good enough to win a Super Bowl. And we go to bed every night knowing and believing that, and it's not fake belief. We're one of the places where we can win the Super Bowl.
Like Randy Moss used to say, it's going to be a fun ride.
Schedule comes out on May 12th. Dennis is selling cars over Coons Ford Security Boulevard. Make sure you stop and see him. The Sunday Sports Voice is now the Dennis Koulatsos Show, D. Koulatsos Show. You can find him out on Twitter as well as at BaltimorePositive.com.